The second Saturday in November, the first weekend following the first college football playoff rankings of this season. It gets even more significant each and every week leading up to that last Saturday of the college football campaign and Selection Sunday, the opening weekend of December. So to help you get set for week number 11 of this college football season, Mark Zinno is here live on this Thursday on the early line on SportsGrid. Zinno, as always, we appreciate the time. We will start in the Southeastern Conference. We'll look at the rest of the country in college football in week 11 after. We're glad to have you here on this Thursday.
Gentlemen, great to be with you as always. We are at kind of elimination time for some of these teams, right? We've seen the first college football playoff rankings come out, and now it gets serious as every team tries to vie for positioning here, and now the ever-boring top 12.
And Mark Zinno, as you said, that's part of what still makes the college football playoff, despite expansion, incredibly interesting. Some that were anti-expansion, tough week to be those guys, but some that were anti-expansion said that regular season games would not matter anymore. Law. Regular season games often work as de facto college football playoff games. Well, welcome to Week 11 Saturday in the SEC. He's Mark Zinno. He's also the mouth in the South, and now it's time for his SEC picks. Because on cue, Mark Zinno, welcome to Saturday night in Death Valley. It's number 11, Alabama. It's number 14, LSU. It's a top 15 tilt in Death Valley. Under the lights at night, we know how difficult a venue is that is for the opposition inside Tiger Stadium. And Mark, this is your de facto elimination game. Both of these teams already multiple losses this season. And Alabama is a 2.5-point road favorite in Baton Rouge. We did see LSU as a slight home underdog previously this year against Ole Miss win that game outright. It is a de facto elimination game. So Zinno, who keeps their season afloat after Saturday night?
The LSU Tigers. I mean, it's a Saturday night in Baton Rouge. What could go wrong down in Death Valley for the Alabama Crimson Tide of all things? I mean, you also have LSU coming off a loss last time out to Texas A&M, so they probably are a little bit hungry for a win here and need it. I don't 100% know that this is an elimination game. It feels like it, but there's still a path for both of these teams, the loser of this, to actually still get in the college football playoff when it's all said and done. We've seen the committee do quirkier things, to say the least, at certain times. But I don't know that Alabama, without a run game to speak of, without any level of consistency, is going to be able to handle LSU. These are the spots here where I kind of trust Brian Kelly as a game caller and a play caller more than I would Kalen DeBoer at this point in time. And we've seen Alabama struggle offensively. So there's a lot going up against. And the last time Nick Saban went down here 2 years ago, didn't work out well for the Tide then. I don't think it works out well for the Tide now.
Yeah, it should be a good game down there, and you're right about it. So hard to beat LSU at night. But also, Mark, each team has 2 losses. Can you imagine if this was like 2 or 3 years ago? Tickets would be going for $1. Nobody would be watching this game on TV because nobody would care, and they're both out of it now. Huge stuff. And as you said, I love it because I sort of misconstrued this season as well, where it's like you can afford 1 loss. 2 probably doesn't get you in. 3rd loss still might be able to get you in. College football back in a big way, Mark, which includes in the Grove in the SEC, Georgia and Ole Miss. The look-ahead line, 6.5-point favorite here for Georgia. We now see it as 2.5 across the board and a total 54.5. Georgia, Ole Miss. Come on now, 3:30 SEC.
I mean, this is the Lane Kiffin game that equates to the James Franklin game that he can't win in the Big Ten, right?
Sure.
Like, this is the game here for Lane Kiffin to sort of put a feather in his cap and go, look, we Ole Miss has really arrived. Look, and Kiffin has done amazing things down in Oxford, right? This program is at heights it hasn't been pretty much ever. And they are a consistent perennial powerhouse, and they're here. They're going to have to get past a Georgia team that has a bunch of warts. I mean, and which Georgia team is really going to show up? The one with Carson Beck is a turnover machine, which he's been. Joe, by the way, Carson Beck, not an NFL quarterback, guys. This just in. From this standpoint here, Georgia has to figure out a way to be able to run the ball at some consistency, keep the ball in their hands, and then slow down what may be one of the better quarterbacks in the country in Jackson Dart. When you look at it, and, we had this conversation last night, a bunch of us, about if I needed an SEC quarterback to win one game, Jackson Dart might be the guy you'd pick at this point in time. I mean, honestly, he may be the most reliable guy out there, and it's going to be on him really to steal this game here for the Rebs. But the key is, guys, Ole Miss has to play with a lead. They have to keep Georgia on their heels. If they get down, Georgia's defense will lock down and not give it up, similar to what we saw against Texas, where Georgia was able to control the game and choke them out and really, really kind of send the pass rush and make life heck for Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning for the short time that he was under center. But long story short here, guys, Ole Miss, if they can get out to an early lead here, I think they can hang on in this one.
It will be really interesting, Mark, and you bring up a great point about Lane Kiffin in these significant spots. As an underdog in Oxford, 14 times with Lane Kiffin. They are 8-6 against the spread. 6 of those 8 covers, an outright victory. Of course, when you look back on what Ole Miss has done with ranked opponents seeing Lane Kiffin, they are just 7-9 straight up. Lane, in his college coaching career, 10-20, a huge spot. Meanwhile, against ranked foes with Kirby Smart since the start of 2021, Georgia is 18-3. In fact, Georgia, in its last 56 football games since the middle portion of 2020, is 53-3 rather, with all 3 of those losses against the same team, and that is Alabama. Zinno, elsewhere on the SEC slate on Saturday, an interesting one starts at noon in Austin. Texas, of course, looking to find its way back. A loss to Georgia, a non-cover on the road in Nashville against Vanderbilt. Now, a 3-touchdown favorite against Florida. On the injury report, DJ Lagway listed as questionable. It seemed to be a severe hamstring injury last week in Jacksonville against UGA. They're not ruling him out this week. How will that impact the spread by the time we reach Saturday afternoon?
Well, it'll get right past 24 if Lagway is out. But the thing here is this. Even if Lagway is in and 100% healthy, you have to ask yourself, that was Florida's Super Bowl last week and the game that may have saved Billy Napier's job at least for another week or longer by being so competitive and having a lead and having a chance to take out Georgia, right? How much do they have left in the emotional tank to get back up for a second week in a row, playing away from the swamp for the second week in a row to go down to Austin and try and win that game? I don't know that it's there. I'm not comfortable laying 21.5 in an SEC game pretty much ever. But this looks like a spot where, it's really simple. You know how I always cut games in half here, Ben and Donnie. Like, if Florida's not within 14 and at half, they're going to have no shot. So I would look, if I'm going to take Florida, I'd play them in the first half, but I'd probably lean Texas here in the first half and the game to cover it.
Mississippi State, Mark, here, struggling in the SEC, no doubt about it, 0-5. They're going up against Tennessee. This is a heavy line, minus 23.5 points, but we have that proverbial, hey, Tennessee, who you got next week after an easy game this week? Oh, Georgia's on deck. How do we play this one out?
Okay. This number, I had to do a triple take to stare at the screen to make sure I was seeing what I was seeing. What world does Tennessee deserve to be laying over 3 touchdowns? Has anybody watched them play football in the last month? That's insane. There is no way you're laying this kind of number. Tennessee hasn't covered a spread this big since they played Kent State back in week 3. Stop. We have too much of a sample size at this point in time to believe that Tennessee can cover this number. Mississippi State, for all their flaws, has been scrappy. They've been in games. They hung around with Georgia. They're not, necessarily a team that is as bad as we thought they were, at least at the outset. Sure, they've been beaten by a couple of teams, but still, come on. Tennessee cannot be laying 24 points against anybody right now.
More than likely, the Bulldogs are not going to win this game on Rocky Top. But Mississippi State has been a 3-touchdown dog already 3 times this year in SEC play. They are perfect, 3-0 ATS. Meanwhile, Tennessee has been a double-digit favorite 3 times in SEC play. 0-3 against the number. It's all the cowbell on Saturday. More with Mark Zinno next. In Bloomington, they used to joke about 9-Windiana, a program that had only ever won 9 games a few times in program history, and certainly in the 136 years prior to this one had never started a perfect 9-0. Well, welcome Curt Cignetti. The Hoosiers are 9-0 for the first time ever in Indiana football program history. And the Hoosiers have covered in 8 of those 9 wins. And Indiana is favored to beat Michigan in a football game for the first time since 1968. And not just a 3.5-point favorite or laying a touchdown at home. It's 2 touchdowns in favor of the Hoosiers, trying to win 10 games in a season for the first time ever. Zinno, will Indiana do so and potentially cover comfortably against the Maize and Blue, the reigning national champs, on Saturday in Bloomington?
Yeah. I mean, look, as somebody who stepped in front of Indiana at one point this season and got my tail handed to me, they're a wagon, and it's really hard to deny the numbers that they've put up and what they have done so far. You also have to acknowledge they haven't had a step up in class that matters. And Michigan is not,
Correct.
This year's Michigan is not a step up in class that matters. Michigan has no offense. So the biggest problem here is that while Michigan's defense may be able to slow down Indiana and only keep them to, let's call it 27, much similar to what we saw Washington be able to do earlier this year against them, I don't know that you are going to get much out of Michigan's offense enough to keep this thing close. So the Indiana defense also has requited themselves really well. Like, we keep talking about the offense and Rourke and what he's done, but this is still a defense that has done really, really well and has managed to hold up their end of the bargain here. So I don't see a path for Michigan here other than Indiana playing poorly and choking on their home turf. It's Indiana or pass. I mean, I'm not going to get involved, but at this point, Indiana it looks like the right side.
Yeah, putting the who in Hoosiers here with that actual schedule that they have. Hoosiers have they played? Nobody. All right, let's keep moving forward here. BYU, Utah, the battle out there. And by the way, I don't know if this is Army-Navy, Mark. 40.5, the listed total in this game, and a favorite towards BYU, unbeaten BYU at -3.5. What's going on out there? How is this?
I mean, look at this spot for Utah, right?
Sheesh.
Like, I can't remember the last time Kyle Whittingham didn't win 9 games in a year. I know it's happened, within the last 10, 12 years, but it's not off the top of my head. It seems like it's a fait accompli. And guess what? Kyle Whittingham ain't winning 9 games this year. So that's number one. The Utes have lost 4 in a row, and they are in a desperation spot here against the BYU team that has had some close calls and some near misses, but also some pretty convincing wins. The Holy War here will be decided early on, and Utah's defense will let us know if they're up to this game and if they're primed for this game. But it all boils down to who's playing quarterback for Utah. And it's been the mess that has been the last season and a half for the Utes, and why things have gone off the rails. They've just had no consistency at that position, and it's really hard to back them from an offensive standpoint. That said, it's going to take a lot of my friends to talk me off of betting Utah here. Like, I really going to need Saturday some really good coaxing and everything else to not get to the window on Utah, just given the spot, the situation, the rivalry, and everything else.
Yeah, listen, you bring up a good point. It is the Holy War. It's the first time they've played the Holy War as conference mates since 2012, the 102nd Holy War between BYU and Utah. BYU, of course, one of 5 remaining undefeated teams in college football. They have also covered in all but one of their games this year. Mark Zinno, next up, we stay in the Big 12. For a true conference contender, and maybe a college football playoff contender, that's 20th ranked Colorado. They head to Lubbock to take on Texas Tech as a slight 3.5-point favorite. The Red Raiders, perfect, 3-0 against the number as an underdog this year. Just pulled off a huge upset last week on the road in Jack Trice against Iowa State. Can the Red Raiders be upset-minded once again in this Big 12 battle?
Yeah, I would love this game a lot more if Texas Tech didn't just roll into Ames, Iowa last week and beat the Hawkeyes, like something that a lot of teams don't really do all that often at this point in the year. But what world do we get into where we have Colorado as a road favorite? They were a road underdog at Nebraska. They were a road underdog at UCF, and they were a road underdog to Arizona, who turns out to be horrible this year. And now they're laying 3.5 on the road to Texas Tech? Like, come on. I know they're off a bye, but, how much did Deion really do during the bye here is the real question. I mean, he's worried about Showdown and the Raiders losing so he can get his son into Las Vegas to be the starting quarterback there. Like, I'm just not in a world where I'm laying points on the road with the Colorado Buffaloes in that defense. Just period. Texas Tech here is the right side.
Let's see how many See how many touchdowns Hunter can rack up in this one, trying to win a Heisman. Why? Because the front runners right now, Travis Hunter and also Miami, Florida, the Hurricanes, and more, going to take on Georgia Tech in Atlanta this weekend. That total now sitting at 63.5 points and a double-digit favorite for the Miami Hurricanes. Mark, we know Miami can move the football on offense, but other teams can move the football on their defense. What gives this weekend?
I mean, the big question here is the status of Haynes King for Georgia Tech. Is he back? Is he playing? I mean, that's, if he is, then I would go the over. Absolutely, because he's the key to their offense here. Look, Benny will tell you the long list of Brent Key underdog stats here and how well he's performed. Correct. That said, this may be a different level of team that he's performing against in this spot was earlier in the year. Again, Georgia Tech was a big dog earlier in the year. The Louisville, they didn't get it done there. It was a late sort of punt block touchdown helped the Cardinals cover that game. But this is a whole different world here with Miami. I don't know that Georgia Tech has the horses in the barn to keep up here. I'd love to think that they can, but if Haynes King isn't going, I don't think you could play Georgia Tech in any way.
7-3 against the spread as a double-digit dog after the victory against Florida State in Ireland to open the year, but they now have not covered in their last 3 games as an underdog, including their last 2 as a double-digit dog, including 2 weekends ago against Virginia Tech, getting 11 points from the Hokies.